Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Our 2 Cents on Your Dollars. I am James Enriquez, basketball, baseball coach. And this is James Carrito, basketball coach. Leo Chang, baseball and baseball coach.
That's it.
So today we're going to be talking about college planning. But first, we're going to be talking about this cool little slide that came out with JP Morgan College Planning Essentials discussing athletic scholarships, which is why I started off there.
And we're all athletes here, so we should know.
Some of us are more
self-proclaimed.
Yeah, self-proclaimed.
They don't know that. They don't know. They can't tell the difference.
And the one that speaks up first is probably the least athletic. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Ouch.
Okay, so have you all seen this slide that's right up here on the screen?
Yeah, you just showed it to us the other day.
Yeah.
Maybe a minute ago.
So I thought this was shocking.
Okay. Shocking evidence.
Only 7% of high school athletes play college sports, and only 2% of them receive athletic scholarships. And furthermore, full ride scholarships are only available for these Division I sports: men's football, men's and women's basketball, women's volleyball, women's tennis, women's gymnastics. With the average scholarship for women being $21,072 and the average D1 men's athletic scholarship $20,274, which is still short of the average public college cost of $24,030 annually.
Woo!
Furthermore,
Inflation.
the average D2 women's scholarship is $9,065, with the average men's Division II athletic scholarship at $7,415.
Wow. It's because those schools are cheaper, right? No. They're actually probably more. Those are private, smaller schools that probably cost more than the big public schools.
Right. Okay. So if your college planning involves athletic scholarship, and don't add us here, okay? We're not talking about the private lessons for youth, whether or not you should or shouldn't. We're purely looking at from a financial aspect.
Probability as well.
Well, no, let's suspend disbelief for a little bit and let's live in a fantasy world where my child will be in the top 2%. Okay.
Yep.
Even if he gets that athletic scholarship, and he's got $20,724 of athletic scholarship for 4 years. Let's say he shows out and earns that athletic scholarship, stays on Scully for 4 years, got $80,000.
NIL.
It's a whole nother topic.
Right.
Would love to expand on that later.
Of course.
But if he's going to get $80,000, how much is he going to spend, or am I going to spend on private lessons from the time he can till the time he goes to college?
Well, the time he can starts out of the womb nowadays.
Oh, yeah, it's true, right? Hey, get him on the tee.
Hey, can he hold a pencil? Let's start working on some swing path stuff right now.
2-a-days. Immediately.
Working on that dexterity, right?
Yeah, dexterity, whatever.
I wasn't surprised with how low it was for the percent of high school athletes that end up playing in college, but the percentage in terms of how many of them get a scholarship, it's atrociously low. Man, it's bad. Yeah.
So your kids are a little bit older.
Yeah.
So you've done some kind of training. You paid for some kind of training.
Yeah.
What does something like that range? What's the range, the cost?
Yeah, the range is, as of right now, I think for most places would be $75 to $125 for about once or twice a week of training for a specific sport.
So $125 a week or $125 a month?
Sorry, $125 per
lesson.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So can y'all do some quick math?
One time.
So how many years? What age do you start that, and do you go all the way to senior year?
I mean, we've been on and off, but she started in third grade is when she first started some sort of a private lesson.
So you were late.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she was already potty trained
That's good.
You know,
That's good to start with that.
Super late.
Okay, so what's that math?
Well, honestly, I think the older they get, the frequency increases as far as the individual professional training. So that cost goes up exponentially. So from that like 5 probably to that 10, 11 age time frame, they're maybe getting lessons once a week, and they're working with a professional coach depending on what specific sport they're playing. So they're paying per cost per lesson. But you get to high school, you get 12, 13, now you're playing for your high school program. Oh, now you're showing some elevated talent and really trying to pursue, to play collegiately. You're going to be starting to work with that, with that professional individual way more frequently. So that number probably doubles, maybe even triples when it gets to that 13 to 18 time frame.
You know what? That's true. And no, those prices are for group training, right?
This is group training. So
Yeah.
you add in the individual private training, you're in a different ball game.
So do you know roughly how much that costs for individual training?
Yeah, I mean, it could easily just double the price that you're paying for group training, and then you have to add in the frequency that you're doing that. So
double including the group training. So $250 for the individual training, $125 for the group training. So $375.
Right.
All right. So let's
A
run
month?
A month?
I did private training from when I was 13 years old till when I went to JUCO, and I did private pitching training my junior senior year, private pitcher every single week.
Did y'all catch that? Leo just dropping that he played.
yeah,
college
he's trying to say that he
just
played
FYI.
collegiate
Humble
ball.
brag.
Yeah.
Continue.
Sorry.
Working with a private trainer once a week, we paid per lesson, and per lesson was anywhere from $80 to $100. So working with just a private trainer was, and this was 16, 17 years ago, it was $100 per lesson. So it was about $400 a month, which I go back now and I don't even know how my parents afforded to do that. It ended up benefiting them at the time frame because I never did private lessons up until then. I had a lot of friends that did, but it wasn't until that time frame where, one of the high school coaches like, hey, we want you to pitch. We think you can play at the next level. And I was like, oh no. And my dad's like, well, someone should probably show you how to do that.
So that's, what is that? Just doing 10 years? That's is that $50,000? Just for that?
Just for that.
Just for that. Yeah. Not including the travel stuff?
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But we also noted that baseball, you can't even get a full D1.
75% is the max scholarship amount you can receive playing baseball.
Okay. So if the average cost of a public 4-year college is $24,000, 75% is what? $18,000?
Yeah, you bet $18,000.
So 18 times 4 is 72,000. Okay. So you're in it for 50 grand. Right, is that what the math we did? It's probably even more.
It's more.
With baseball, you're starting. You're probably even starting at 5. I've seen some 5-year-olds. Right.
Private lessons.
So 13 years. So 5,000 a year. So $65,000.
Right.
All to get $72,000.
Look how he turned out, though. I mean, look at him.
That's true. All's well that ends well.
I am one of few examples of what could end up being based upon the circumstances.
Yes. So
Very few.
okay. So if this is not a viable college savings planning strategy, what is?
I think you're about to tell us, because
No, that was an open-ended question for you.
I was hoping we were going to go towards, train more, 2-a-days. No?
Train harder.
Train harder? This is not it. Okay.
Switch your sport to tennis.
Yeah. Something individual. I mean, there's so many options, and one of the things I really do enjoy about what we do is the college planning stuff, because a lot of the time we're doing a lot of planning and intricate planning for clients, and it's very selfish from their perspective as far as what they're doing and what they're planning as well too. But when we start getting into conversations about college planning and how it benefits their children and stuff like that, they become very passionate about it. And a lot of times sometimes we have to hold them back too, because they want to do more for their kids before they've done enough planning for themselves. So it's a really interesting topic for me. But Yeah, there's multiple different things, and we'll get into it. A lot of the things clients have heard about 529s being a very, very popular vehicle that we utilize for college savings, which I think is probably one of, if not the most efficient vehicle that we can utilize and that everyone really has access to. Coverdell accounts, savings bonds, UGMAs, UTMAs. There's a lot of different vehicles and different avenues that we can utilize tool wise to help people prepare and plan for college.
So what is a 529?
Well, it's a specific account for education planning, and over time, we think it's the best. It's the best financial. It's the best account for education planning because it's specific to that, and it has a lot of flexibilities in terms of how much you can contribute, tax benefits, and how you can access the funds.
So that should, you said flexibility, that should not be confused with the prepaid 529, right?
Yeah, there's two types. There's the prepaid 529 plans, and then there's the 529 savings plan. Actually, the first 529 plans were prepaid tuition plans, where you're buying units towards a state school, and you can use your contribution or units towards a private school or out of state school, but the equation is a little bit different, and you might not get the full benefits if your child goes into a state school.
Okay. So I get what a 529 is. You said it's an account and it's most efficient. But how so?
The way that the tax benefit works, I think, is probably the most prevalent part of what the vehicle provides. So you're able to put in money, after tax, into an account. Those funds are then invested. So typically you'll use a pretty popular mutual fund family to invest those assets. Those assets then grow over time if used correctly for qualified distributions. Those assets grow tax-free and are distributed tax-free to pay for certain costs associated to secondary education. And one of the cool things now is they've become more flexible as far as how you can utilize 529 spending and the distribution, and what is considered a qualified cost when it comes to 529s. And so that's something that's changed and evolved a little bit with those. But the neat part is you can have a 529 for a child. They're the beneficiary. The individual parent, grandparent owns that 529, so you have control. I know there's individuals that are always concerned granting, a certain dollar amount and providing access to that dollar amount to children, especially minors, and then being able to utilize it for whatever they want. So you maintain control of that asset, determine how you want to distribute it, and also what it's invested in. And anyone can contribute to it. And I think that's another really cool part is that, you can set up an account and, Mima, Papa, DOTL, whoever can make contributions into that account. And that money is gifted to the 529 and it'll grow tax-free.
We just got an insight into his education planning strategy.
Peep on?
Yeah, none of it involved him.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Those all sound like great features and benefits, but can't you accomplish all that with a life insurance?
You could. You're talking about cash value life insurance policies.
I don't know. I just got a letter in the mail talking from Gerber telling me about baby food and buying a...
They've had some legal issues, so I'll be careful with.
Yeah, we've had clients over the years, and friends and family ask me about using life insurance for education planning. The main message I always want to the audience to know is that the cash value for life insurance can be used for anything, and it's not just specific for education planning or retirement planning. And I'm kind of stressing on that because sometimes these products are kind of sold to make it sound like It's the best thing. It's the best strategy in the world, and they're throwing the kitchen sink in there. You can use it for your retirement. You can use it for education, but that cash value can be used for anything. However, when you do an analysis, and not many people have actually done this, but 529 plans are specific to education, and insurance product are specific to insurance, and so there's going to be inefficiencies there if you're using a product that was designed for something else to try to capture something else. But if you just do a simple math, putting $100 into a 529 plan, you put $100 into a cash value life insurance policy, fast forward it, 18 years, you'll be very surprised to see that the cash value or investment value that you have in a life insurance policy is way lower than the cash value you have in a 529 plan. Way lower. And you could do the same thing with a Roth IRA. You compare it to the cash value of a life insurance policy, and you'll be surprised to see that the cash value for that life insurance policy is lower than the Roth IRA, even though you're putting in the same amount and you're investing in similar investment products, because the life insurance policy is designed for life insurance and the fee structure is totally different. And what we're trying to say is it's higher.
I would say if you haven't done education planning, you're at the point where now you're having to pay for education, you have cash value in a life policy and you don't already have some of these education benefits, it can be a great tool to be able to help you take care of those costs. But if you're doing planning way ahead of time, then understanding that one vehicle is very specific and it's going to be extremely more efficient than the other one, I think is really important.
Okay. To piggyback on that topic, what do y'all typically recommend for somebody that's probably going to need funds in a couple years? They get started late. They're going to need funds in a couple years. Do you tell them to even bother with a 529 or just save on their own, or, create a sinking fund at the bank and just draw from that, or cash flow it for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to, depend on the situation, because when you're talking to a client / parent, one child, they might be thinking that, they're going to go to 4 years, but they have goals of, becoming a physician or an attorney. And so the cost will be tremendous, and they feel like they really want to support their child, and they want to pay half, 75%, 100%. And so there's still benefits to putting money into a 529 account.
So it's case-by-case scenario.
It's a case-by-case scenario, because some might argue there that you might not have enough growth where the tax-free component will not really make a big difference. But every situation is so different. Yeah.
So there's no general rule of thumb. You should still go through the exercise of planning for education, even if it's a couple years away.
Yeah, in 529s too, you can pay for the 529s differently, right? So 529s are invested with mutual fund families, and the mutual fund families have what are called share classes. And so these share classes are designed to allow the individual to pay for the funds that they're utilizing in a format that may meet more of what the time frame is that they're looking at when it comes to saving and then also distributing funds.
Okay, but what about the potential for market declines?
Yeah, so that's the benefit also utilizing those mutual funds is you can adjust your risk tolerance with the funds and the investments based upon that timeline. So exactly what Credo was saying, right? Just case by case. So someone ultra conservative could utilize very conservative funds that have lower volatility, or even cash in those funds that are earning smaller amounts of interest, but they're still earning interest, and interest is growing tax-free.
Yeah, just going back to my comment earlier that these are accounts, and the reason why I mentioned that, because usually, when working with clients, a common question I always get is, hey, James, how much does a Roth or IRA earn? How much does a 529 earn?
One of my favorite all time.
And so we always have to remind our clients that these are accounts, and these accounts have features and benefits, but each account, you choose the investment that you're going to invest in. Some accounts, it might be limited where the plan provider is giving you the list of available investment options. Like, if you have a 401k, you may notice that there's only 20 or 30 investment options. But either way, you're picking the investment that you like. And some accounts that are, owned individually, like an IRA, you can invest it in anything. But the accounts themselves, they have features and benefits, but you choose the vehicle that you want to grow your money. So.
Mutual fund families are the ones that really control 529. So you're limited to those funds. But there are other vehicles that do allow you to invest really in everything. Coverdell, if you're putting $1,500 into NVIDIA and Coverdell the last couple of years, probably would be pretty decent right now. So those funds specifically are aligned to just the mutual funds themselves. So you're kind of stuck with whatever the fund family is allowing you to do, but Coverdell's will allow you to invest in anything, really, individual stocks, whatever. You can only put in so much into those types of accounts. So.
Okay. Since there are different ways to save for college, how do you go about identifying which is the best strategy for that person?
Yeah, it goes back to, Q&A, really getting to know your clients and their concerns. The 529 is our go-to for education planning, but you might have a client that will say something like, I'm concerned if they don't go to college. I'm concerned if there's going to be leftover money, what's going to happen. And so you might end up in a situation where you're putting some money into a 529, but you might be putting it into a Roth IRA or even just an investment account to give you that flexibility that if the 529 account is not used up, you still have some other avenues.
Yeah. So you mentioned Roth IRA earlier. Let's assume $7,000 Roth IRA annual contribution. Let's say you fund it every single year, including the year of your child's birth,
right?
And you do it for 18 years,
right?
You could end up putting $126,000 in.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about Roth IRA contributions is the fact that you can get to the contributions penalty and tax-free at any point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you could essentially have $126,000 that you could apply to college. Won't be available for your retirement. It's kind of like what you were talking about earlier, right? Or what's that other saying? You can always
borrow money for college, can't borrow money to retire.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you take all that into consideration, like what people's preferences are.
Yeah.
Like what should our viewers be thinking about as they, because some people might want to do it on their own, or. So what should they consider?
Yeah, I mean, with the 529, if you're using it for education, we kept mentioning flexibility and how it's efficient and it's designed for education planning. But I don't think we've mentioned yet, if you use the funds in the 529 for educational expenses, your contributions and the gains are all tax free. In a Roth IRA, your contributions come out tax free, but the earnings are going to be subject to taxes and penalties. So this is where you really have to get to know your client and their preferences, and you have to make adjustments. And it's also worth noting, if you mention the wrong school to me, I will not help you with your educational planning.
Which was the right school, James?
Yeah. No. The people are listening.
I think to that point too, it's understanding, hey, if you could have a client who their child is approaching collegiate age, and at that point in time, they're above 59 and a half, right? And so, those types of vehicles, then the penalties don't become an issue. But like we were saying, now you're using a retirement account to fund 529 or fund college education. Just depends on the situation, right? But 529s do have a penalty if you don't use the funds for education. So that's the one thing that you always have to take into consideration is, what if my child doesn't go to college? What if they are that 2% and or less that receives the full athletic scholarship. Then you have to understand, okay, those funds can be repurposed if you'd like. You can take those funds and gift them to another child. That individual could, continue to further their education career, like Crudo was saying, and they use them later on. And some of the new rules about converting 529 money into Roth as well too, those are all added benefits. But understanding that if you use 529 money for anything other than education purposes, then any of the gains are taxed at ordinary income plus that 10% penalty.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like we're going to get to everything today.
Yeah.
So there are a couple points I want to hit on, but I like that you mentioned about the 529 to Roth conversion. I feel like the financial media made it sound way better than it actually is.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing.
Right, not a
At
bad
all.
thing,
Right.
but it's not as great as,
Right.
okay.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what are some of those provisions?
Yeah, I think the 529 would have to be at least 15 years old.
Yep.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think you can only roll over which is the Roth contribution, which is it 7,000?
Right.
And for the lifetime, I think you can only roll over 35,000.
Right.
So, it's not a bad thing, but it did sound a lot better when we were first hearing about it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's just one of those things like, oh man, I funded my child's education, which could easily, you start doing at 2 years old and you have $130,000 529 account and they only used, 50. You're like, oh, I have 80,000, 90,000 left. I can move this over to a Roth. No, you can't. A portion you can, but not all of it can be repurposed. So it is a benefit because I think there is flexibility there, and I like where we're headed as far as continue to influence and provide some incentives to participate into these plans, because we're not seeing these state-run plans anymore. There's not a lot of states that are doing these statewide college savings style plans. They don't want to fund them anymore, so they're trying to influence individuals to participate in these types of plans. That is an added incentive. It's not a huge one, but it's definitely something that we didn't have before.
Yeah, I think I'd say don't let that be a part of your plan.
Right.
So in other words, don't overfund a 529 thinking, oh, this is a way I'm going to do a backdoor Roth IRA contribution for my kid.
Right.
I don't think it's as straightforward.
Right.
It's just an added benefit if you have some leftover funds.
Yep.
Okay. You mentioned savings bonds earlier. So I kind of wanted to share some things that I ran into recently.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
a lot of people were buying I bonds in 2022. In fact, it was a record number of I bonds. And for those that aren't aware, I bonds and double E bonds purchased or issued after 1989 could qualify for an education exclusion. There's certain requirements that need to be met. But I think it's important to know those requirements if your intention is, I'm going to use those saving bonds proceeds to pay for college education, because you might be disappointed.
Yeah.
So for example, you can use those proceeds for yourself, a spouse, or a dependent. So if you're a grandparent buying an I bond or double E bond for your grandkid, you're not going to get the exclusion unless the grandkid is your dependent. So you might think, aha, I got you, IRS. I know a loophole. I'm going to buy it in my kid's name.
right.
Well, I'm sorry, but the owner needs to be 24 at the time of purchase.
Uh-huh.
So there goes that loophole.
Yeah.
My point is that you probably want to think about all this before you decide on which vehicle you're going to use for education planning.
Right.
Would y'all add anything else around all that?
No, just a comment that when it comes to education planning, in general, it's actually difficult for me to do education planning. I feel like the numbers. I always like to say to clients, the numbers are the easy part. It's that's the emotion that's difficult, because you can have a perfect education plan where you've identified the school the cost and the inflation to go to that school, and then your child gets accepted somewhere else that's way more expensive, and now you're just throwing everything out because it's an emotional decision. It's very
Light that plan on fire.
it's
Way to go, James.
you have a perfect plan. This is for retirement. This is for emergencies.
Yeah.
This is for opportunities. This is for the business. This is for education. And you know what, James? We're gonna follow the plan. We're not gonna take from these pots, because when I went to school, I did it on my own. And then when they get accepted to a specific school, and it's very difficult to get that school, becomes very difficult to say no.
Yeah.
So you have, I guess, as a practitioner, you have to have some flexibility, or already have that conversation ahead of time. Hey, I just want to let you know this is what my experience has been. And you just continue to have the conversation, so you're a little bit more prepared. Yeah.
Okay. As we wrap up,
Yeah.
In that scenario, couldn't they get financial aid?
What sport?
Well, needs-based financial aid. How about that?
I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many different formats to be able to provide student funding and financial funding. There's federal programs, there's private programs. There's so many ways. One of the cool things that I show clients, there's a couple different apps that allow you to go in and put in all the students' information as far as, ethnic background, interest, hobbies, education, any types of organizations, things that they're interested in and things that they participate in. And it'll provide all the different scholarships that are available associated to those likes and interests. And so that's a really interesting and cool way just to be able to find, $500 here, $1,200 here. And it's so easy to apply for these scholarship opportunities. It's a short essay or a blog or something, and no one applies for these. They're providing, XYZ organization could be providing $1,000, $1,200 scholarships for individuals for filling out this application and writing a short, 1,000-word essay. And they only get like 6 or 7 people that apply for them. So those are easy ways as well too, to be able to just get that little bit of extra funding on top of it that, could pay for that meal plan or could pay for something over that.
And you can find that link right here. I'd also like to add that even if you think you might not qualify for financial aid, you should still fill out the FAFSA anyway. And the FAFSA calculation has changed for this school year, or for the 2024-2025 school year. There are some things that you could possibly do to increase your financial aid. So for example, contributions to employer-sponsored plans like 401k does not count as income. So it could reduce your income, which could potentially increase your financial aid. Income is more important towards financial aid than assets are, or things like moving countable assets for financial aid purposes to non-countable assets. So for example, if you have a lot of money in a savings account and it's not earning much, and you also have a mortgage that's paying more that you're paying more interest on, you might want to move or use that cash in a savings account to pay off your mortgage, because equity in your primary residence does not count as an asset for financial aid.
Love that one. That one's a great one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to do this. So to really wrap it up, don't rely on athletic scholarships. Fill out a FAFSA and start planning sooner than later. Thank you for tuning in. That's our 2 cents on your dollars.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to effect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal.